G'day guys, this is a video on obesity and taurine, our favorite compound. Let me just share my screen. Okay, this is a research out of Japan that I came across some time ago, and taurine deficiency creates a vicious cycle promoting obesity. Now, this is in an animal model. In that regard, the relation between blood taurine concentrations and obesity was investigated. Taurine is supplied to the body by dietary ingestion as well as de novo synthesis. That means internally synthesized from methionine and cysteine. Okay, so, and it's metabolized by cysteine dihydrogenase, which is another enzyme. But pretty much cysteine, methionine will go to cysteine, will go to, so both of those amino acids can be used in that regard. This is just one of the enzymatic pathways for that to be done, which is abundantly expressed in liver, yes, and white adipose tissue. White adipose tissue. Yes, the plot thickens. Overexpression of CDO in pre-adipocytes cause a decrease in the level of cysteine, precursor of taurine, and an increase in the level of taurine in the cultural medium, suggesting that CDO is involved in biosynthesis and secretion of taurine in white adipose tissue. Okay. A very important enzyme. In a high-fat diet induced and or genetically obese mice, that means which they've genetically deliberately designed to basically become obese, a decrease in the blood taurine concentration was observed, along with a decrease in CDO expression in the adipose tissue, but not in liver, obviously. Dietary taurine supplementation prevented high-fat diet-induced obesity with increased resting energy expenditure. Now, when they say high-fat, what they mean is high sugar, high-fat. You know, they usually, this high-fat chow that they call about is basically, has a bit of lard in it, a whole lot of seed oil, plus a whole lot of sugar, okay? That's what this high-fat chow is all about. It's Randall cycle, activation. Okay, and we know that taurine, I've discussed it before, does lower lactate and force it through the Krebs cycle, and also not only through, pyruvate dehydrogenase, and once it actually gets into acetyl-CoA, there's no way back, in a sense, enzymatically. And the other thing is that it lowers, taurine has the ability to lower blood sugar levels. But there are other mechanisms as well, which is very interesting. Anyway, and that's what I want to get into. Thus, taurine deficiency observed in association with obesity may create a vicious cycle promoting obesity. This is a hypothesis, okay? Dietary taurine supplementation interrupts this vicious cycle and may prevent obesity and may not. So it doesn't mean absolutely anything. Personally, my view is that, obesity is Randall cycle activation over many, many years continuously. But also there's another component to that, which is the destruction of, damaging cellular function. And that means a lot of glycation, a lot of oxidation, products from the seed oils, and also the deuterium side, which actually damages the electron chains, reducing energy capacity within the actual mitochondria, and so within the cell through oxidative phosphorylation. So by lowering that, you're basically in continuous, and forcing the Krebs cycle in this reverse, you're in continuous storage rather than oxidizing that energy that's coming in. And then biosynthesizing more. And this is what happens with a carnivore diet, or a high-fat diet, which we call low-carb, high-fat diet, to be more specific. Is basically what it does is, because of the higher, because of those saturated fats that come in, they cause reverse electron transport through the complex 1, signaling back to the to the cell that we need to get your machinery going to clone more mitochondria, to increase the biogenesis of more mitochondria. And so you'll have more mitochondria being produced to be able to take up that energy and all that. And that's why when you do a carnivore diet and stuff like that, and you go high fat, you tend to increase those pathways, and your metabolic rate goes up. And as a consequence, you start oxidizing at much higher levels. I mean, recently, most people know Bart did that, where he consumed massive amounts and he lost weight. Okay. Now, he was taking taurine as well, which has another effect, and I'll go into it shortly. But there is quite clear that there are pathways that are actually affecting, enzymatic pathways that are being affected by taurine as well. And obviously, taurine is a proxy for animal foods, because only animal foods are very high in taurine. So generally speaking, when you take taurine with the actual in the animal food, you will see improvement. So it is playing a role, and I'll cover those shortly. So they just talk about the general sort of stuff. And it is speculated that a fish rather than a meat-based diet reduces the risk of obesity and diabetes. Yeah, whatever. That's the sort of general bullshit. Taurine is a sulfonic acid, to be more precise. It is abundant in seafood, but not in meat. That's bullshit. It is in meat as well, but not as abundant as in seafood. Seafood is much higher, but in all animal foods, you'll find taurine. The threshold is just different, where you'll get in some seafood 0.5 gram to an entire gram for the same amount of food. In an animal food like meat or ruminant, it's going to be like 200 it's going to be it won't be in those quantities of 1 gram or whatever. It'll be like milligrams, like 200 milligrams, and depending on the cut of meat and all that, it'll vary. And obviously, in today's supply, where we hang up meat for a very long time, for a number of weeks, and they lose a lot of the fluids. It's not like freshly slaughtered will be much higher in the taurine component. So this is looking at commercial meats that are hung up for a long time. Yes, they will have lower levels, and they can vary between how long they've been hung up, from anywhere between 50 to 100. An animal that's freshly slaughtered will be over 200, but not freshly slaughtered will be under that. So that's an issue with the food supply, rather than to say that it's the meat that doesn't have that. Well, that's nonsense. Not freshly, it's the way we process things. Anyway, moving on. And they basically just say it might be beneficial, may not, in preventing obesity and diabetes. I don't think it's going to prevent, taurine is not going to prevent obesity or diabetes. If you eat inappropriate and then supplement, it's not going to work. Okay, that's just nonsense. That it has ways of mitigating some of the deleterious effects, that's true. It does. You know, obviously these rats are much healthier rats with good levels of mitochondrial function. So these aren't rats that are basically unhealthy, which, you know, they've manufactured these rats to be able to pack on weight very fast. Genetically, they've altered them so they'll pack on weight very quickly because they're doing these reductionist sort of research, study. That's what they're doing. But when you have to look beyond that and understand that somebody who's obese didn't get there because they just had some genetics which forced them to become very obese very rapidly. They became over time, you know. So this study is not applicable to humans, you know. So giving people is not. How will taurine actually help somebody who's obese? If they stop eating those sort of foods and you take supplemental taurine, you'll heal the mitochondria. And as the mitochondria heal and get better in doing what they do to produce energy, then you will basically start functioning better, repairing your tissue better, and start using energy more efficiently and all that. So it's that sort of side that will help with taurine rather than that. Now, what they see here is obviously, another thing is these sort of effects, what it does have the ability to improve mitochondrial function. Now, we know that mitochondrial function is important, and we'll get to that. There's also adipose tissue related to mitochondrial function. We'll get to that as well shortly. So really what we're looking at is that taurine's going to be playing on all these things. Now, they didn't investigate these things. They're only looking at certain results. We give, so they're not looking at the exact mechanisms. It's more, we've given this supplement, we've seen these results. So that's the way they've approached this. So I'm not going to go right through this because I find it a bit too reductionist, and it's just saying, well, this has this effect, and they see it as a novel strategy for treating individuals with obesity. I don't see it as that. If people are eating inappropriate foods, it's not going to really help. It will help to some extent, but it won't reverse the condition. You really have to get off activating the Randall cycle with high levels of mixed, eating the standard diet. Basically, you have to stop doing that if you want to. So, obviously, I've explained in past videos and past about the effects of how it, taurine can lower blood sugar levels, can improve mitochondrial function. So we've discussed all that in the past and all that. So what else does it do in the adipose tissue, in the fat cells? That's the interesting part. Let's look at this research. Anyway, this is from China. Taurine mediated browning of white adipose tissue is involved in its anti-obesity effect in mice. So what we're actually seeing is this browning effect. Hello Kitty keeps complaining to me. She says, each time I take taurine, I have this really, my back becomes really warm and sweaty. Well, it's because it actually upregulates slightly brown adipose tissue. And it also makes your regular white adipose tissue, the stuff around your waist, your hips and all that, it actually makes that more, it gives it sort of beiges it, it sort of browns it, and it actually makes it, it's the sort of effect we've noticed. And this is one thing why people have tried, diets which include a bit more seafood and stuff like that, sort of carnivorous, and they've seen much more rapid weight loss. And they're going, why? And it's really this browning of white adipose tissue that's happening because they're taking in more taurine from the diet. So it's really that effect. And because the ruminants today, are not freshly slaughtered, so they will have some level of depletion loss in that regard. So this is really the sort of the stuff that people are starting to understand now, that this is just another mechanism that taurine works on, which, with its thousands of regulatory things, as they call it, a non-protein amino acid. It's a sulfonic acid. I think they need to move away from calling it a non-protein amino acid. Taurine is a sulfonic acid. Yes, it is a sort of a peptide, has a peptide structure, but it's still, anyway, everything inside the body has some sort of peptide structure, has some sort of protein structure. I think it's just not the right way. It creates a lot of confusion out there amongst people. Yeah. Anyway, that's my just. It is widely distributed in almost all animal tissues. That is right. It's a very ancient molecule. Ingestion of taurine helps to improve obesity and its related metabolic disorders. Yes, it does in a number of different ways, but it's not a panacea. It's not going to basically change everything. Yes, it does improve insulin sensitivity and increases energy expenditure. Well, that's sort of by increasing the Krebs cycle. It actually increases the efficiency of the Krebs cycle. It is considered that it sort of increases slightly over 20%. It hasn't been very well calculated, let's put it that way. I'm just going to say slightly over 20%. I'm not going to say any more than that, for the simple reason that there's research that shows it's around about that, but there's a lot of research that shows maybe it's a bit higher, maybe it's not, so it's, yeah. So I'm not going to go into the weeds on that research, so to speak. And adaptive thermogenesis of the mice. Yes, you will actually feel warmer in winter having taurine. Meanwhile, administration of the mice with taurine mutterly induced the browning of inguinal white adipose tissue. Okay. So when they looked at these little mice, they saw an increase in that. And so when they knocked out this gene, they did it deliberately in vitro. So this indicate that taurine also induces the development of brown-like adipocytes in the sort of the white adipocytes, sort of the browning-like. When they knocked out this, they blunted the role of taurine in promoting brown-like adipocytes. So the adipocytes are there, the fat cells. Okay, so the browning of the actual fat cells was reduced. Moreover, taurine treatment enhances AMPK phosphorylation. We know that AMPK is upregulated in a ketogenic diet, in fasting, and a whole lot of other things. So it is related to this knockout, the effects on AMPK, this mediation on that other pathway. Okay, we're not going to go into the weeds of biochemistry and enzymes and genes that are involved. We'll leave that. So, oops. Just for those that are interested, they want to look up some of these pathways, gene pathways. But I'll keep on going. Okay. We want the photos. Yep, I think I've. So this is before. That's body weight. As you can see, there's before treatment. That's after treatment. As you can see, the body weight has come down in comparison. So there it was about 35 grams. Here it's probably a bit more than that. Probably, let's say 36. Maybe 32 there. Probably 32. Approximate. So the sort of difference and remember, this is they've been given a like this Randall cycle activated diet. Obviously, that's why they've put on fat weight, these animals. Oh, sorry, I meant to do this. So the other one's about 10% heavier, but they're both much heavier because they were about probably about 28. So one went up by 25%, and the other one went up by 14%. So about, in percentage terms, double. So obviously, eating the same crap, the taurine sort of minimized the effect. And this is why I've been saying to people that giving a leucine supplementation to drive more muscle protein synthesis, which will actually also lower the blood sugar levels of people that have got obesity and stuff like that. I do recommend both leucine and taurine supplementation, but you need to be careful with the taurine supplementation due to the blood pressure issues or lithium. There are those conditions. But, you know, if you've got parents and people like that that are not on blood pressure meds or lithium, then this is an option. But even if they are, you can actually get the doctor to adjust those meds, work with the doctor, and those parents will see better results in their health outcomes, because sometimes it's very hard to change their attitude to what they eat. It's much easier just to, they used to, you know, because they grew up in a period when science just transformed their world. They're used to taking the magic pill. So it's much easier to give them a damn supplement than basically try to change their diet completely. So you can actually improve slightly there. So as you can see, the fat mass has gone down in the taurine treated. This is percentage of body weight. So there's a fat mass has gone down and the lean mass has gone up. That is through the myostatin inhibition, which I've spoken about in the past. Has a mild myostatin inhibition, allows for more muscularity. When it comes to fluids, no real change. And I expected that there'd be no change in the water. That's important because people say, oh, you've lost water. Really? No, there's no real change there in the water part. Obviously, because they were on the same diet. So there's not going to be a change in the water. So as you can see, the fat cells, I'm not going to go into too much of that. As you can see, those levels are much higher. So pretty much states it. Glucose, much lower in the taurine, we know. Again here. So when we're looking at glucose, and that's different types of measurements, from being in an elevated state or from a fasted state, it's still going to be lower. In a fed state, it's still going to be lower. That's what these two mean. Here you've got a fasted state, which it shoots up when the animal's fed, and it's nearly identical there. And then with taurine administration, it actually, it veers out. So you can actually see there is a difference in glucose in the system, in the bloodstream. You're nearly back to base level after 2 hours, where without the taurine, it's still elevated. And that's, again, through these mechanisms that I've spoken before about the efficiency of the Krebs cycle and actually pushing, preventing it going down the lactate pathway and pushing it through and improving the efficiency of the Krebs cycle. So Krebs cycle, to be more precise. And this is when somebody's in a fed state. There's also a marked difference. You can actually see that it's in a fed state. It'll actually, from one fed state, you'll actually see these sort of things. That's the insulin effect. But yeah, those are the differences. And taurine reduces obesity and improves insulin sensitivity in a high-fat diet fed mice. Well, we're talking about obesogenic diet, which is a Randall cycle-activated diet. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it is just, light dark cycles that they're looking at, VO2, if people want to look at that, sort of the VO2 stuff. Okay, much better in the taurine one. The sort of heat, that sort of stuff. But respiratory exchange, it's not much difference. The rectal temperature, slightly a bit higher. That's the thermogenesis effect. Taurine increases energy expenditure and adaptive thermogenesis, through Beijing adipose tissue and increasing the sort of uncoupling effect. Anyway, that's pretty much it without getting into the weeds. It just is another strategy, for those people who are struggling with weight loss or struggling. But at the end of the day, if you're drinking alcohol, you're eating inappropriately and all that, don't expect taurine to correct those things. What taurine can do is enhance those results. But ultimately, most of us haven't, we're not like healthy rats, then being given inappropriate and then getting these sort of effects. You're not going to get this sort of effect in an unhealthy person or an unhealthy rat that was on a obesogenic diet, let's say for 2 years, and then you were giving them this. You probably wouldn't see this effect much. So this is on a healthy rat that basically you can see that effect. So there's definitely an effect, that browning effect, but there is the other side of the coin, which is the Randall cycle activation, and the damaging to the mitochondria through deuterium, which means that your efficiency is not going to be as good as a young person. So a young person taking taurine is going to see vastly more benefits than an older person who's got more mitochondrial damage. So keep that in mind. So for a younger person trying to change their body composition, taurine is going to be really good at doing that. It's going to make them more muscular, and it's going to lower their level of white fat, their fat weight in their system, and it will actually improve their composition much more rapidly than a standard carnivore diet. So that's where you can actually biohack as a young person to change your body composition more rapidly. For older people, it takes time because we've done a lot of damage to ourselves, and it's going to take time to heal and repair and slowly start getting some of these benefits. It's just the reality, guys. You know, I know I sound like a party pooper, but that's the reality. It's the difference between somebody who's like that Maasai that was, you know, running up the hillside and Mary couldn't keep up with that guy, 80-year-old. Well, that's a person that doesn't have a lot of mitochondrial damage because they haven't been guzzling down seed oils and refined sugars high in deuterium, damaging their mitochondria, their, you know, basically their respiration. You know, so their respiratory system hasn't been damaged. They can manage energy like a young person, even in an older age. We, on the other hand, don't have the same level. We've been declining for the last couple of decades because of the seed oils and the refined sugars that have damaged our systems. So it's going to take time to heal those systems and get the benefits. But what I'm saying is you can take these things to increase the reparative effects. So this is where taurine comes in as a supplement and actually can, you know, move to beiging your fat cells, which means that your fat cells then start having a more greater mitochondrial density, which means that they start, you know, lowering. It's not a rapid thing. Don't expect miracles, you know, and it also how well behaved you are, you know, as an oldie, how much you keep away from alcohol and cheating and all this sort of stuff will play a role in how much benefit you'll get from, you know, using taurine this way. So it's not a panacea, but it's something to keep in mind that it is an adjunct, a helper. It helps, but you need to change your lifestyle, dietary lifestyle, to get the full effect. And a carnivore diet, especially if you've got a lot of derangements, a lot of health problems and all that, a stricter approach is going to yield far more benefits than just basically thinking there's a magic pill. There isn't. Believe me, what taurine does is helps along the way, helps the reparative effects, helps with improving, you know, your mitochondrial health by repairing it, amplifying melatonin in the evening and lowering cortisol, which means you reducing the damaging effects of high cortisol, and also you're actually being able to get into better sleep, which allows you to heal better as well. So all these sort of things help in their way. And so just, yeah, it's not complicated rocket science, guys. You know, we could go into the weeds, but ultimately, the more damaged you are, the stricter you have to be if you're going to improve over time. Anyway, that's about it. Anyway, see yous.